is Bill 54. Bill, Dr. Jared Wesley, a political scientist, he calls it the most comprehensive set of anti-democratic reforms in Alberta's history. Full-on Americanization of our democracy. You see, you've probably heard Danielle Smith, well, she spent a lot of time this year doing little cocktails and canapé tour of the United States, taking selfies with some of the most extreme far-right Republican politicians she could find. Now, she claims she was there to influence them, to influence Donald Trump, to back down on imposing tariffs on Canada. We know that didn't work. Tariffs are here. But maybe it's fair to ask if the influence was actually running the other way. Because according to Dr. Wesley, Bill 54, well, it's pretty much a carbon copy of the kinds of shady tactics that have been used by Donald Trump and the Republican Party in the U.S. Let me break that down a bit. First of all, this bill follows the U.S. in forcing big money back into our politics by removing restrictions on corporate and union donations. So that means people who have a lot of money are going to be able to use numbered companies to funnel even more of their money to support political parties, candidates, and other third parties to influence our elections. Kind of like how those American tech bros, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, they spent all kinds of money to get Trump elected so they could get a bunch of favors in return. And well, how's that working out for the Americans? And if you think Danielle Smith is already doing a lot of favors for her corporate friends, private healthcare companies, folks in oil and gas now, well, just wait until this bill gets passed. And those companies get a free pass to funnel millions in dark money into backing and advertising for the UCP. Second, the bill bans vote tabulators, automatic vote counting machines. Now, this was right out of the Trump playbook. All of his unhinged rants about stop the steal, all those conspiracy theories about Dominion voting machines, all the lies they used to try to convince Americans that they couldn't trust their elections. Well, now the UCP are bringing that here to ensure all of our future elections are going to be more expensive because we have to hire hundreds of people to hand count ballots and get that count done within 12 hours. Millions of tax dollars being spent to make our elections less efficient while they undermine trust in the process. Pretty much the opposite of what they say this bill is supposed to do. Good job, UCP. Third, the bill's saturated with a grab bag of Republican tactics aimed at suppressing the vote. It strips the ability to vote at any polling station. It makes it harder to get a special ballot, and it takes away the right to vote from anyone who doesn't have photo ID, all in the name of preventing voter fraud. But the thing is, that's a problem that doesn't exist. Elections Alberta reports that in the last 10 years, with millions of votes cast in dozens of elections across the province, there have been only 7 incidents of fraud. That's less than a fraction of a percent. But provisions like requiring photo ID, well, they disproportionately affect younger, older, Indigenous, racialized, disabled, rural, and low-income voters, groups that are less likely to have government-issued photo ID, making it harder for them to vote. Which is exactly what the Republicans, and now it seems the UCP, want. Less Albertans voting. To have the government choose their voters instead of voters choosing their government. Lastly, the bill makes it a whole lot easier for fringe groups to create chaos with endless referendums and recall votes. In the U.S., Trump's friends, supporters, they've been using referendum votes to try to bypass legislatures and push all kinds of extreme ideas that don't have mainstream support, things that are rooted in conspiracy theories and misinformation. And wouldn't you know it, all through the recent federal election, friends and supporters of the UCP, heck, even Danielle Smith herself, have been talking about how if the Liberals won again, Albertans would be angry and start talking about separation. Now, the Premier said that she won't call a vote on separation herself, but hey, if enough Albertans happen to sign a petition, well, they could force a referendum vote. Well, Bill 54 rolls out the red carpet for anyone who'd like to do that by cutting the number of signatures required to trigger a vote in half, and then giving the organizers an extra 30 days to collect them. So get ready for potentially vote after vote on things Albertans have already been clear they don't want, like an Alberta pension plan, a provincial police force, and yes, separation from Canada, all paid for with your tax dollars. At the same time, the UCP, well, they're drastically reducing the number of signatures needed to trigger a recall vote. That's a vote to decide if someone who's been elected should get to keep their position. Now, some might say that's a good way to hold officials accountable, and in Alberta, in theory, yes, it could be. But what we've seen in practice in the U.S. is that when it's easy to organize a recall vote, they get weaponized to try to intimidate elected officials over ideology, rather than issues of conduct and integrity. And again, it empowers fringe groups to use recall to create chaos over their pet issues and conspiracies. So to put all of this together, with Bill 54, the UCP are handing all those folks calling for Alberta separatism, who love Donald Trump and want to be a 51st state, who want to bring all the chaos we've been seeing south of the border here, all the tools they need to do it. And the UCP are following in Republicans' footsteps by flooding our elections with dark money from their corporate friends while making it even harder for everyday people to vote. American-style anti-democracy to stoke separatism to satisfy a small minority of Albertans, and the UCP hopes provide a much-needed distraction from the 7 investigations currently looking at allegations of corruption and kickback in private health care contracts and potentially more. So what can we do about it? Well, you can go to separatistsmith.ca and sign our petition to tell Daniel Smith to stop chasing separatism and get to work for Albertans. Second, you can write to Premier Smith and Justice Minister Mickey Amory and tell them to scrap Bill 54 because you don't want American-style elections in Alberta. Last, go to jaredwesley.ca and read his excellent post. Danielle Smith's electoral reforms are straight from the Trump playbook. Share it with your family and friends so they can know what the UCP are trying to push through with Bill 54. Because yes, better is possible, but we're going to have to fight to get it.